Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Apologies for that. Yes, I was muted for a bit, but yes, we are back, and we're going to go straight into our conversation for today. Now, our speaker is right behind us. She's going to be coming on very, very shortly. But before I bring her on, just so you have an idea of who it is that we're speaking to today, I'm going to play her video profile very, very shortly, and then right after her video profile, you will get to hear her voice. So, ladies and gentlemen, sit back, relax, watch the video profile. It's a very short one, just about a minute, and then afterwards, I'm going to bring her on. Bye bye for now.
We welcome Gil Brabner to the Impact Leadership Live series. Gil Brabner is a seasoned learning and development consultant with over 20 years of experience in drama-based learning. Gil founded Resound Training and Development Ltd. in 2004 and quickly established a strong track record of delivering high-impact, immersive learning workshops using Forum Theater. Gil and her team of actors present real-life work stories and work with the audience to co-create the solution to the problem presented. Gil is a chartered fellow of the CIPED and gained her MSc in Digital Education from the University of Edinburgh in 2020. Gil is a popular podcast guest. Her speaking topics include the power of Forum Theater for learning, bringing compassion into the workplace using her ECA model of empathy, care, action, and the importance of developing leaders and leadership within business. Ladies and gentlemen, join us as we welcome Gil Brabner to the Impact Leadership Live series.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Gil Brabner on the Impact Live series right here. Gil, thank you so much for being a part of this. Now, we've just gone through your video profile, but we'd like to hear from what I like to call the horse's mouth. So please talk to us. Who exactly is Gil?
So I'm a learning and development professional. I have only over 20 years experience in designing and delivering high impact programs. And we specialise in delivering drama-based learning, or forum theatre to give it its proper term, where we create short dramas about workplace issues. And we present those in workplaces, face-to-face or remotely, virtually, and our audiences get to interact with the story.
That's amazing. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people will be wondering what it is that you're talking about. So we're going to deep dive a bit into what it is that you're talking about. So, like you said, you're celebrating over 20 years of using this theater-based learning and professional development. Now, what first inspired you to bridge the world of theater and workplace training? Because I'm not sure if that's the first time it's being done. I haven't heard it before. So, I mean, how did that come about? What inspired you? And maybe share with us some of the success stories it is that you've had so far with the project.
So it goes all the way back to when I was 17, so a long time ago, when I was a sixth form student studying English literature. And with my friends, we went off to the theatre to see a play called Death of a Salesman by Arthur Miller. And for any of your viewers and listeners that know the play, it's a really tragic story around a central character called Willy Loman. Now, at the end of the play, my friends, they were sitting there saying, well, that was depressing, let's go to the pub. But I went home elated. And the reason I went home elated was that story proved to me that my family wasn't the only family where there was somebody with mental health problems. So you see, my dad at that point was receiving treatment in a mental health unit. And apart from so wanting him to recover, and bearing in mind he was a revolving door service user, so he had been through this this experience before. This wasn't the first time. So yet again, we found ourselves as a family with him really unwell and needing professional support. But as a teenager, what I really felt was the shame and the stigma that other people put onto us because of his mental health problems, which was so wrong and so unfair, as we know today. And the thing was, I didn't know anyone else who had a parent with mental health problems. And so seeing that play explore those issues made me understand that, yeah, there were other families going through this. If there was a play written about this years before, then we weren't the only family experiencing this. And although I understood that cognitively, I hadn't really downloaded it until that moment. And that made me really want to use theatre for social good in some way. I didn't know how. I didn't know how that would happen, but I just knew I wanted to be involved in theatre that made people feel better in the way that I'd felt better that night. Now, it took a long time. I went to drama school as a mature student after I'd had my family. And there I found out about something called forum theatre and how this was being used in workplaces to help address really difficult work issues. And then a few years on from that, I got the opportunity finally to set up my forum theatre team. And we've been delivering it ever since.
Oh wow, that's amazing. I mean, funny how situations that we embark upon kind of charts the course of our lives, right? Thank you so very much for sharing that with us. Now, you mentioned the forum theater while we are talking there. Can you please just walk us through what the forum theater actually looks like in the corporate training setting, right? So what might participants experience in one of your sessions? So for someone that is wondering, like I'm also wondering, right, what might they experience in one of those your sessions?
Sure. So pre-COVID, we were obviously delivering workshops face to face, and we've gone back to doing that a bit now, but mostly we're delivering workshops online, either through Zoom or through Teams. And typically they're 90-minute workshops when they're online, and we'll have a scenario which we have developed with a group, usually within the client organisation, and it will address a particular issue, a particular management conversation, or a particular difficult behaviours that have emerged in that business. So our delegates will join us online. We'll have some introductions, a bit of discussion. We set the scene and the structure so people are really clear what's going to happen across the course of the workshop. And we'll have a little bit of background to the issue we're exploring. We could be talking about performance management. We could be talking about bullying and harassment. And more recently, we've done a lot of work around sexual harassment because of the new duty that's come in on employers in the UK. And then we go straight into the scenario. And typically we'll have 3 characters played by our actors and a facilitator, either myself or one of my colleagues. Now, I'll take you through a recent workshop scenario that we've been delivering. So we've got 3 characters and the scenario is set up so that they are talking to each other on Teams. They're all working remotely and they're just calling each other on Teams to have these conversations. And what we see is a young person having her probationary review meeting. And in that, she tells her manager that she loves her work, but she is rather upset about some things that have been said to her, some banter, some inappropriate humour that's made her feel really uncomfortable. And she hasn't known what to do, and she wasn't sure really whether, she wanted to be in this company. The problem is the manager handles it really badly. She means well, but she's not had any training. She's been put into this interim role unexpectedly, and she is friends with the person that's the perpetrator. So we've got all of these undercurrents going on, and then we see the manager call the person with the inappropriate behaviour, a character we call Bob, and we see what plays out then. And then we have a really tense moment where Bob phones the young member of the team, and his behaviour is totally unacceptable and clearly moves into bullying. And then our young team member, makes a call to her partner, and it's very clear that she's going to go off sick the next day and she's not coming back. So we then open it up to the group to ask questions. They can interview the characters, and if they ask open questions and really thoughtful questions, they're likely to get some information about the backstory, which is gives them more insight into what's really going on in that business and specifically within that team. So they're playing detective, they're getting more information, and then eventually we move to the redirection. So our participants, our learners, can stop and start the scene as we play it again, and they give the actors their direction. So together we co-create the answer. We co-create the type of conversation we want the manager to have, so that she starts to really address these inappropriate behaviours in her team and ultimately improve the team culture. So we never ask our participants to role play, and that's because we have seen for ourselves that we get the best learning outcomes when delegates are able to really enjoy the scenario without having that feeling of anxiety that they might be called upon to role play themselves. So people get really immersed into the story. You know, and stories are really powerful things, aren't they? We know that from film, from TV, from the stories we tell each other. Stories make a real difference. And when we can harness them in this sort of workplace learning, what we experience is the emotional connection to those characters and to the situations. And provided that our characters are relatable and the situations are realistic, then people enter into that story. And that's what makes all the difference.
Wow, that sounds like a very, very interesting model, right? I can think of how immersive it will be. I can think of myself going through such an experience where it's actually practicalized. You can actually put yourself in that scenario to bring it up. And workplaces, HR professionals, and all of those in charge of learning and development in organizations, if you're out there listening to this is a fantastic model that I think you should be incorporating in your learning development in your organization. Now, one of the things you have said you will talk about is the ECA model, right? So let's talk about that. So what is the ECA model for handling workplace conversations? So could you break this down for our audience and explain how it might help managers, for the managers that are watching right now, how it might help them navigate these challenging conversations? Truth be told, everybody tries to avoid these conversations, right? So someone out there might need this help. Please talk to us about this.
Okay, so ECA emerged from research I did into compassion. So compassion has been an ongoing conversation in large organisations for some years now, and then we saw it come into value sets. So organisations were saying that compassion was one of their values, and so we did some research about that. So what does it mean to be compassionate at work? And so to help people bring compassion into everyday conversations, we identified 3 really core elements. So one is empathy, so that's the E in ECA. Secondly, we've got care, and then we've got action. So let's break that down then for a conversation. So empathy. So what that means is that you're asking that other person for their perspective on something, for their point of view. Let's imagine that a complaint has come into you about one of your team members. It would be so easy to feel angry about that and to go into that conversation feeling angry and saying, look, I've had this complaint, you've been told that blah, 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 and getting really directive, really strong. But at that point, you don't know the other person's point of view. You don't know what's gone on for them. So empathy is, I suppose it's sort of the common description or definition is walking in someone else's shoes. So empathy is asking them for their perspective. So you would say, the customer that you were talking to this morning, I know it was a really difficult conversation. Can you just talk me through what happened from your perspective? I really want to understand it from your side. So you ask for their point of view, and then you listen without judgment. You listen to what they're saying. And then within that, asking for their perspective, listening without judgment, that builds rapport and trust. So rapport and trust is so important in the relationship between the team leader or the manager and their team members. That rapport and trust makes a huge difference. So then we come on to care. So you might say, well, look, that's really helpful that you've explained that to me. Let me tell you what I'm needing to manage. Obviously, it's really important to me that we meet our performance objectives. This is what I'm responsible for. Our team needs to deliver on X, Y, and Z. I care about that. And I care that you're in a good place to deliver on that for us. So you might say to your team member, so look, what matters to you in all of this? Tell me what matters to you. And then you're getting that much deeper level of understanding about your team member. And it's beyond the example I've given. It's so important because you then start to understand what motivates that other person. And of course, we care about well-being as well. So we care about the things that we need to achieve for the business, for the team, for ourselves. We want to know what matters to other people, what matters to them, because we care about them as members of our team. And we care that they're in a good place, and we care that, about ourselves as well, because we need to stay in a good place to perform well in businesses. So we've got empathy, we've got care, and then coming on to action. What was so interesting about the research into compassion was that action is embedded within the definition of compassion. It's not enough to feel for somebody who's suffering. That's not enough. We have to take action. To be truly compassionate, there needs to be some action. Now, within a workplace context, what we're talking about there is identifying those actions that you would take together to resolve whatever it is that you're working on. Now, it might be that you're able to enable and empower your team member to take action, and that's great. But there might also be times when you need to take action on their behalf. And the other important point around action is to celebrate the small wins. Take that type of celebratory action. That sometimes gets overlooked in the rush to get everything done at work. But it's so important to acknowledge the little wins along the journey, because again, it all underpins that creating an environment in which people become motivated. So that's the ECA model. Any questions on that before we move on, Shay?
I mean, yes, that's a very, very amazing and fantastic model. Like I said, I'm enjoying this models of learning and development. And you've talked about the ECA, so the empathy, the care, and then the most important thing, taking action. That's fantastic as well. Now, in your own experience, especially with dealing with difficult conversations, what are some of those common difficult conversations that managers struggle with, right? And how does this approach help them build confidence in these situations?
Well, I suppose a difficult conversation is anything that we feel uncomfortable about, or any topic where we might struggle to manage our own emotional responses to it, and where our team member or the other person can't handle theirs. So there's lots of scope there for things to be difficult. And it could be around telling somebody that their performance isn't meeting the standard. It could be about somebody's health, their well-being, their sickness record. It could be around inappropriate behaviours, whether that's bullying and harassment, sexual harassment, or all the other behaviours that can occur in workplaces. But essentially, we need to have a high level of self-awareness so we can stay in control of our own emotional responses, and we need to be able to support other people to handle theirs. And don't underestimate the power of role modelling a good conversation. because other people will be learning from that all the time. So I think what works in the ECA model is that empathy piece, is the fact that you are right at the beginning saying, look, tell me about this from your point of view. Tell me what you're experiencing. And then that high quality listening values people. You know, it's as simple as that. When we really listen and seek to understand what they're saying and what they've experienced, then we are valuing that person. And when you feel valued, you're able to commit more, you're able to engage more, you're just able to be a better employee because you feel valued. It's that you feel respected, you feel heard, you feel seen. And that's what's so powerful about the model.
That's really true. I mean, when people feel valued, they're better engaged, they're better committed, and they give their all to this. Now, one thing that I feel might help people is if they have practical examples. So in your work using this with managers around the world, is there any particular example that really stuck out to you, how a manager was able to use this model to handle a particular situation and how it did transform that situation? Just curious to understand that. Is there anyone? And if so, please share one with us.
So what was so interesting was the last year we had several managers come to us with the same difficult conversation, and this was through training programs, it was through coaching, it was a variety of people working across different industries. But the problem they all presented was that they had a younger member in their team, very talented, lots of skills which were really needed by the business and by that team, and the young person worked hard, but they would not do above and beyond, as it was described to me. They would not do additional hours. Now, in all of these businesses, they had a culture of working very long hours and where junior staff would simply do whatever their managers told them. And then along comes this generation where they're saying, well, actually, no, I've got a life outside of work and I want to be able to log off. I've done my hours and I'm now leaving to go and do X, Y, and Z, and being quite confident in saying that. And in these organisations where they've previously had this very hierarchical structure, that presented a huge challenge to the managers. And whilst they wanted to confront it head on, and some did, what they were finding was that they were then at risk of losing some really talented people. So we encouraged them to use our ECA model, and they were sceptical. It went against the grain for most of them, but we said, look, try it. We've tried it with numerous client organisations. We know it works. We've tried it in some unusual places where you wouldn't expect compassion. So just try it. And then they started to come back and they said, wow, yeah, I can see what you mean, because it's just opened up a better relationship. So these people, they just got themselves into that sort of fight situation. But by taking time to say, look, tell me about this for you. Tell me what's going on for you. And then they were just able to negotiate a better relationship, a better way of working, and put some things in place which worked for both of them. So it was, well, okay, I know you've got to turn this around for the client tonight. Well, if I do a couple of extra hours, can I take that time back tomorrow? Can I take it back the next day? So there started to be this give and take. And rather than it's just expected that you will do whatever is asked of you, it was, well, no, let's respect the fact that you have a family, you've got other interests that you're doing outside of work. Let's respect that. But you will help us out and we will give you that time back. And so we got just a different relationship building across those different workplaces, different managers. It was just fascinating how it all came about.
I mean, that's really interesting. It's good to know how these models are being used. And, ensuring that our workplaces are very, very healthy and conducive for the workers is very important because about a third of our lives is spent at work. The other third is spent sleeping. So you have just about a third left out of that. So it is really important that you are in an environment that really supports you both mentally and all the while. That's really, really fantastic. Now, I know you talked about, using professional actors reacting, the workplace scenarios and everything. Now, what do you think? Why do you think this drama-based learning is much more effective than the traditional role play? Because, like you said, you don't get the employees or the participants in the sessions to role play. You use
Yeah.
professional actors, right? So, why do you think this is much more effective than the traditional role playing method?
So I've already mentioned that we don't ask our delegates to role play because we've got our professional actors to do that. And that immediately takes the anxiety out of the room. So you just feel it as soon as you say there is no role play for you in this session. Our team of actors are here to do that. So then that pressure to perform is gone and they can relax and enjoy the section and focus on the story. So that's a really big thing for us. Because we're using professional actors, they can hold the role. So when you might have a group of delegates and you're telling them to role play, they feel a bit awkward, a bit embarrassed. They're coming in and out of role. But an actor, that's their job. They know that they're going to play this manager. They know the story. And so even when they're off script, they're still that character. And that's really important because when we move to the redirection, they're taking the direction from the group. So they don't know what they're going to be told and they have to go with it as they're being directed. So those improvisation skills are really important to this model. And our actors, are really skilled at that.
That's really fantastic. That's amazing. I'm usually very passionate about first-time managers, right? Because a lot of times in the workplace, you start off your career and then you start to grow and you are really passionate about your work. You're doing a lot of things. And then based on that, you kind of are thrown into managerial position, either middle or senior level management. And in some cases, you are not actually taught how to be a good manager or a good leader. Okay, so I'm really passionate about that, segment or the sector of the workforce, right?
Yeah.
So, in your experience, what are the biggest challenges that first-time managers face? Just in case someone is watching right now, is in that scenario, or is about getting in that scenario, what should they be looking out for when it comes to having these difficult conversations with their teams?
Well, the big difficulty, Shay, you've already mentioned, is that often people are promoted into these roles without the training and support they need, or they've come from within the team. That's a really difficult gig, when you're managing the people that you were previously a team member with and maybe going out socially with, that they're your friends. So that's difficult. Things like conflict, poor performance, the inappropriate behaviours, they're all difficult conversations, obviously. But I think the key thing for any new manager is to be able to set those boundaries and be prepared to just step back from where you were previously as a team member and to fully engage with the management role. It's so easy just to lean into whatever is your comfort zone, whether that's technical skills or some specific knowledge that you've got. But remember, your team needs managing. And one of the best things that you can do is to hold regular one-to-one meetings with each of your team members. So I worked with a manager a while back who was in an open plan environment, workspace with his team. And so he said, well, I don't need to run one-to-ones with them because we all work in the same space. They see me every day, so they don't need to have one-to-one time with me. But through the course of the training that we delivered, we encouraged him to put those in place, and he got some amazing results on the back of that, because those people, they were only having 45 minutes of his time every 2 weeks, but just that meant that they could be heard It's just that one-to-one time when they could say whatever they wanted to talk about. They felt listened to and valued, and so the performance of the whole team went up. So I would say, put the boundaries in, be clear about that, be prepared to step away from your previous team member role, and do what you can to support people, including providing one-to-one meetings on a regular basis. And I think that is a really good start. And then there's lots of support and help out there. You can download our ECA model from the website. We've got a YouTube channel with lots of videos of different difficult conversations, which our actors have created, and they show you the getting it wrong, the things not to do, and they show you some better approaches that you can try out. So those resources are available freely to you. There's lots more out there, of course, across the web. Do take time to really think about getting the skills that you need to manage your team well. It will pay you back over and over again.
That's really fantastic. That's really amazing. We wish we could have this conversation forever, because I'm enjoying this conversation, but we need to gradually start winding this down. Now, you have worked with thousands of managers across different sectors, right? In your own experience, what common patterns have you observed in terms of the workplace conversations, making workplace conversations very successful? What patterns have you observed, and would you mind sharing some of those so that we can learn from you have over 20 years of experience in this. What can we learn from that?
I think respectful workplaces, where there's respectful communication, it's so much easier to get on and get results in your team. I think where people cross the line, where they don't understand that some things just aren't acceptable in the workplace now, that's where it gets difficult. So again, it comes back to boundaries, it comes back to being clear, but always from that compassionate viewpoint. So use those empathy skills, get in touch with those, really build the respect within your team culture. And you can do that in such simple ways, the way you run your meetings, the way you talk to people on the Teams chat, the way that you ask for feedback. For a manager to ask for feedback, that's a powerful thing. There's lots that you can do to build a strong, really positive team culture. So I would say lean into that, definitely.
All right, fantastic. I know, like I said, our conversation is gradually winding up. I'm just going to go off script a bit, right? Imagine you had the opportunity, imagine you woke up one morning, right, and just about everything we knew about Jill had gone down the drain, right? No one knew you, no one had ever heard of you before. All your experience had gone down the drain. It was more like, someone just hit delete and deleted all your experiences. And then you had to start to build your life all over again. Where would you start from? And what are you going to do differently this time?
Where would I start from? So, well, I think you start with stories. Look for stories that inspire you. And what are those people doing? There's lots of inspirational people out there on YouTube. What are the stories that connect with you? What are the stories that make you feel good? And that would enable you to inspire others. So it's about doing good in the world, isn't it? And bringing that positive vibe into what you do. Get really clear on your purpose. Why are you doing what you do? And what could you bring to that? Because if we can bring something positive to our everyday interactions, we will make other people's lives better, but we'll also make our own better as well. So let's do that.
That's amazing. Fantastic. Thank you so very much. I'm actually watching out. I know someone on LinkedIn wanted to ask a question. Is that Tangani? Tangani, if you can drop your question very quickly, I'll see if we can take that before we shut down this conversation as well. For those on YouTube and Facebook as well, I'm just trying to scan through. Forgive me, I have like 10 different screens in front of me right now. I'm just trying to scan through if there's any messages on any of those platforms. I know, Tangani, if you can drop your message very quickly, I'll try and take that before we go on with this conversation. So just want to ask you, Jill, for the benefit of the managers or young managers that are watching this right now, what particular tips would you give them on their journey to becoming outstanding leaders or managers out there?
Well, if you can get yourself a mentor, then that is really helpful. Might be somebody within your organization or a coach. It's these types of podcasts and videos can be really useful to people just to help them along the way. And look at the people in your organization. Who do you aspire to? What difference can you make? Look at the people in your team. Do you understand what really matters to them? Just while we're waiting for the question, Shay, let me tell you a quick story. During COVID, we did a piece of research and we went out to HR directors and we said to them, what matters to you? And they came back and they said things like, well, the workforce, the health of the workforce, the sustainability of the business. So we got these big strategic messages. And then we said, and what matters to you right now? And then we got the real stuff. We got, well, my health, I'm worried about my health, I'm worried about my family. So that little question, what matters to you right now, can unlock lots of really helpful information about where your team members are at. And if you start having those really good conversations, you'll learn about them, they'll start to trust you, and you can really build a fantastic team culture. So try it. Try that little question. What matters to you right now?
That's amazing. What matters to you right now? Thank you so much. Now, I was actually so I have the question from Tangani. Let me just see if I can read that very quickly. It says, the ECA model is very impressive and really can build strength and commitment to teamwork. So how do you implement it in an organizational setting that is led by an intolerable leader, in brackets, racism? So a leader that has shown tendencies of, racism or bias or whatever it is. How do you implement it in such an environment? That's what Tangani wants to know.
Well, Danny, that is a totally intolerable situation, and I'm really sorry that, if you've experienced that at work, and for anyone that is experiencing it at the moment. I think the ECA model is designed to embed within everyday conversations. So it can be really difficult to have an impact on a leader, but you can definitely have an impact on the people that are working for you and for colleagues that you work with. So I would say as a first step, start embedding those principles within conversations, which is asking for people's perspectives to build that empathy, the rapport and trust. In terms of the leadership behaviours that you've experienced, I think that's hopefully there is a route within your organisation where that can be discussed safely, a place where you could take that conversation. But I think in terms of ECA, it's about embedding it within everyday conversations with the people around you. You can create your own microcosm, your own team culture, even within organisations where you've got those types of behaviours going on. And I would set your own standards in regards to behaviour and talk to your team about that. And remember, racism is against the law. It's a protected characteristic. And I know this is all really difficult in actually when it comes to the practical level. But not only is it intolerable, but you do not have to copy those behaviours. Make sure your team is a safe place, a psychologically safe space to be.
All right, thank you so very much. Now, Jill, just before we shut down, there's just any last words, any last comments, thoughts that you want to pass out to a manager or someone out there on how to actually become better? Any last comments or thoughts for them?
Well, keep going and be full in. As I said, go all in on being a manager and on getting training support you need. And if it's not available within your organisation, look for it online, because there's lots of resources out there to help you. Please do get in touch with us if you've got any specific questions. We'd be delighted to hear from you, and we will certainly answer any messages we receive. Do look out for our YouTube channel, because we are going to be putting lots more videos on there specifically to help new managers. So yeah.
Yeah, so if anybody wanted to contact you, maybe consider this conversation, or maybe even secure your services in one way or the other, what's the best place for them to contact you at?
So our website, resoundtraining.co.uk, and there's a contact form there. Via LinkedIn, I'm active on LinkedIn, so just look for me there, Jill Brabner. And our YouTube channel is Resound Training. So yeah, any of those channels are good for us, and we'd be delighted to hear from any of your audience, Shay.
All right. Thank you so very much, ladies and gentlemen. It's been an honor. It's been a pleasure having Jill on this conversation with us. Jill, thank you so very much. Taking out time out of your very, very busy schedule. Just a couple of days ago, we were having this conversation about doing this, and here we are. You've been able to push everything aside to have this conversation with us. Thank you so, so very much. So on behalf of myself and everybody that is online now, watching this right now, or even those that are going to see the replay afterwards, I would like to say thank you very much. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, that has been our conversation for today. This is only the very first of the many sessions it is that we're going to be having this year. Now, just as Jill talked about in her conversation there, that seek opportunities to develop yourself, and we have brought one of such opportunities for you. Now, if you enjoyed this conversation, this is just the tip of the iceberg and what you'll be experiencing at the Impact Leadership Conference. Now, this is a conference that started in Dublin but has been held in different parts of the world, in Ireland, in UK, and even in the US, right? The next edition is holding in Drogheda in Ireland. But the interesting thing about the conferences is that they are hybrid conferences. So if you are in and around Drogheda in Ireland and you can make it to the event live, fantastic. We would love to have you. But if you can't make it in person, that's fine. We will bring the conference right to where you are. We have the virtual experience of the conferences as well. Now, even though we have complimentary tickets available, but it's on approval basis only, so you need to make an application and our team will look at it, and if you feel you are a right fit for the conference, we will give you a complimentary ticket to that. So ladies and gentlemen, that has been it for me. To close out this event, I'll just play that video one more time for you. If you want to reach out to us in any way, for any of our services and all of that, to find out more details about what we do and how we can support you and your organization, let us know, and we'll be more than glad to do that. I'm going to end this conversation with what I always say to you. You know what? There is greatness on your inside, and the world is waiting for you to birth and manifest your greatness. Go out there and be profitable, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye for now.